within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time.
The Legion of Dans. The meeting will come to order. The Legion of Dans is now in session. It is the purpose of the Legion to align our infamous forces against the power of sad collectors and defeat them, leaving us, the rulers of the toy world. To do this, we have gathered together 4 of the most ruthless and happy toy fans on Earth. The noisy Daniel Lynch. The flexible plastic Dan Newman. The pixelated Dan Erdley. Not to mention the wise old elder and insider myself, Daniel Pickett. We are the Legion of Dans. Hello everyone and welcome to an all-new episode of the Legion of Dans. I am Daniel Pickett.
I'm Danny Newman.
I'm Daniel Lynch.
And I'm Pixel Dan Erdley.
And I know we said we were going to start strong and be a monthly podcast, and we've already shot past 1 month.
Oh, no.
Accidentally. I know. We missed a month.
Are you sure?
But we are, yeah.
Well, that first episode was so long, it counts as 2.
I mean,
that's right.
All the months kind of
But there was a lot of stuff going on in that month.
Yes.
It was.
Just me personally, I think I've been to, we're in May now? I've been to 9 different major conventions.
What?
Wow.
Just in this amount of time. And that's too many.
Oh my goodness.
That's overload.
You know, I don't think there will ever be a kind of a slow month. You know, we talked about it before. We're living in the golden age of, geek culture and genre stuff. And I don't think we will ever be at a loss for stuff to talk about.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean,
just with what happened with Star Wars alone last month, that could fill the rest of the year with episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, but Pixel Dan, you went to C2E2, right?
I did go to C2E2, yes, just this past April here.
I've never been to that show. How is that?
That's a really good show. It's put on by the same guys that do New York Comic Con. So it's I've heard many people say it's very similar to that, and it's really growing with every year. I was shocked this year to walk in and just see how crowded it was, because I think this was its 5th year, so I've been going ever since they started it, and that first year it was so laid back and small, and, there wasn't a lot of people walking around, but it was really cool. And this year, you're totally doing the con shuffle through the floor, with all the people around you. It was pretty intense, but it's a very fun show. And Marvel's always out there, and Diamond Select was out there, and Tamashii Nations was out there, Bluefin. So, a lot of the bigger companies attend it, and you can tell that it's definitely on the rise. It's a very cool show. It's nice having something like that in the Midwest. Because we don't get a lot of that kind of stuff here. We used to have Wizard World Chicago, which is still around, but it's not what it used to be,
No,
okay.
Yeah, Wizard World Chicago is unfortunately these days it's come get autographs from old pro wrestlers and pseudo-celebrities. That's all Wizard World has turned into these days, it feels like. In Chicago, at least. But yeah, C2E2 is like a straight-up comic convention. It's really cool.
Nice.
Forgive my ignorance. What does C2E2 stand for?
Chicago Comics and Entertainment Expo.
Okay.
And you also hit JoeCon. That was in your backyard, right?
Yeah, it was right here in Springfield, in my hometown, which was really wild because I have never had a show here in Springfield. And while we're the capital of Illinois, we're pretty small. I mean, we're a city, but we're not like a city. You know what I mean? We're not like a Chicago or anything like that. So it was really crazy because JoeCon was literally at the convention center that's next door to my day job.
Wow.
Yep.
So it was fun, looking out the window from my office and seeing cosplayers walking around down there, like preparing for the show, and like I literally walked over there on my break to see what was going on, and people were like, "Hey, you're Pixel Dan," and I'm like, "Hey, I'm on break from work. This is weird." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
worlds are colliding.
Yeah, worlds are colliding. Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of coworkers were like kind of making fun of me. Not making fun of me, but like laughing at the situation, because they were like, what if we walk over there and people recognize you? And then we walked over there and people recognized me, and they were like, this is crazy. You know, they thought it was awesome. So yeah, it was a really fun show. It was cool.
It's really cool to have a convention so close. I don't know how close you live to work, but like to already be there and it's just across the street, that's great.
Yeah, and my house is 5 minutes away, so it was really cool too, because I actually covered the show. So I was like, you know, I'm in my hometown, so why not? Because Hasbro revealed, you know, all the new Joe stuff and everything. So like it was awesome, because I filmed the panel, then I drove to my house and edited it and uploaded it, drove back over to the convention center, interviewed Hasbro, went back home, uploaded the video. It was like, I wish I could do this at every convention I'm at.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. You know, as we're starting to, you know, mentally prepare for San Diego Comic-Con, you know, I think over the years I've pretty much experienced every sort of transportation mode from getting to a hotel to the convention center. And fortunately, in the last few years, I've been able to walk, and that is not something to be taken for granted.
Oh, no.
Because when you can't walk and there's something like trolleys or trains or trams or whatever necessary to get from your hotel to the con, it adds a whole nother level of anxiety and stress.
Really does. I'm lucky because last year and this year I got the same hotel. I'm right down the street, so I get to walk, which is so helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Because like I've got a shuttle that I could get on, but it's literally faster for me just to walk down the street to the hotel than it is to wait for the shuttle bus to, you know, pick me up and take me there. So I just walk, because I'm walking everywhere that weekend anyway. Why not add a few extra blocks to my walk?
Totally.
But yeah, I've been there years where I was really far away and had to take that trolley all the way back and forth, and it's like not even worth it to try sometimes, like getting back and forth to do stuff.
Yeah. And Dan Newman, you got Phoenix Con coming up in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, in a couple of weeks. And the reason I was kind of thinking about that is because Phoenix Con is, you know, Phoenix Con has been going on for quite a while, and when I first moved out to Phoenix about 12 years ago, it was held in a neighboring town called Glendale, just in a little civic center, very small, one room, and it kind of grew out of that and moved to a location in Mesa, which is another neighboring town, and it was there for a few years, finally got big enough for it to actually move to Phoenix.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, of course, it's always been called Phoenix, you know, Comic-Con, but only for the last, I don't know, maybe four-ish years has it actually been in Phoenix. And it's right downtown where I live, and I can, you know, it's a little bit of a walk, but I can walk there too, which is really nice.
Excellent. Yeah, I went to Emerald City Comic-Con for the first time this year.
How was that?
It's interesting. I mean, for them up in the Pacific Northwest, it's a great show. But having been to some of these other big shows all the time, it's a very different vibe.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
The convention center is built over the freeway, and the convention takes place on, I think, 5 different stories.
Really?
So, yeah.
Whoa.
So there are these kind of small floors stacked on top of each other. And that took a little bit of getting used to, because, you know, when you think about, like, San Diego Comic-Con, where it's like 16 football fields that you're just walking from one end to the other.
Yeah.
So to be like, well, what floor was that on? Where was that? You know? But, you know, the people there seemed very, very excited by it. Got to see some friends some people that I've never met before, some toy collectors, and, you know, catching up with some old friends, too. So that wasn't so bad. Are you guys, any of you... Pixel Dan, are you going to go up to Mego Meet or anything? That's in Chicago this year, right?
You know, I've never actually even heard of that one. Mego Meet, huh?
Is that in Chicago, Daniel?
This year it is. Normally it always takes place in Wheeling, West Virginia.
Right.
Oh, but they're coming to Chicago.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, going now.
Dan, yeah, you should look into that. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think. When is it? Do you know off the top of your head?
Early June.
Okay.
Can I send you my wish list?
Yeah, I might look into that. That might be fun to check out.
It's the first weekend in June, I believe.
First weekend, okay.
Well, it might complicate things because that's my wife's birthday, and you guys know my track record with doing things on wife-type holidays. I just drug my wife to a little con on Mother's Day this past weekend.
And every single year, Toy Fair falls on Valentine's Day.
Exactly, yeah. Daniel and I both have to go to Toy Fair every year in February on Valentine's Day.
Pushing your luck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Birthday might be pushing it. So
yeah. Maybe just follow that coverage online.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there was that, so I did that, and then I also, the other really big one I went to was Star Wars Celebration, was here in Anaheim, which is next door to Los Angeles.
And I'm so jealous of everybody that went to that this year.
Somehow,
somehow
that just wasn't on my radar, and then all of a sudden it was happening, and I'm like, I could have gone to Anaheim. What am I doing?
You could have, that's right.
Yeah.
That's not a terrible jog.
Nope.
But yeah, I went to it was right after episode 3, I think, the last time they had it here in Los Angeles. And, that show was, you kind of did it in a day, and it was fine. But this year, this was the year as a Star Wars fan to go to
it
this.
looked like
it.
I think I went to Star Wars Celebration 2 in Indianapolis, so that was right before Episode 2 came out.
Right.
And it seemed like it was a very different show then compared to what it was this year. I mean, this year looked like the one to be at for sure.
Totally.
And it was, it was just great, just the level of excitement. Everyone was just, they did the trailer for the opening ceremonies, and they actually had those new stormtroopers walking around the whole time.
Oh, man.
There were hundreds of remote-controlled full-size R2-D2s. They had built all these props and sets and, just the cosplayers. I mean, it was great as a Star Wars fan. I really enjoyed that show.
And I am telling you, all of us who were home watching were extremely jealous. And I swear, productivity around the world that Thursday went, down to a standstill.
Yeah.
It was worse that I kept seeing pictures from all these people that I know, like Daniel was posting stuff, and all these people. I'm like, I know all these people, and they're all there, and I'm not, and I hate them all. They're all jerks. But man,
But to be fair, I was not there on Thursday. I was supposed to be there on Thursday, and I had an appointment that I had to go to, so I could not go.
Oh.
So I was also sitting in my pajamas Thursday morning watching the live feed, all that, wishing that I was there.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't I go do that?
How cool was it, though, that they did the live feed thing? That was nice that they had.
Oh, that was really
awesome.
nice, yeah.
Yeah. Man.
Yes, indeed.
And that trailer. How many times have you guys all watched that trailer? Because I can tell you that I've watched it way more times than I probably need to, but I still get excited every time I watch it. So.
I've absolutely lost count.
I think I've added up to the length of the movie by this point. How many times I've watched it?
And then, just the sort of surprise of, here's kind of a teaser for Rogue One.
Yeah.
I was never expecting that. And I know there was no, there's no script and there's nothing shot yet, but the fact that they actually had ILM cut that together was that was really cool.
Well, and just the concept that they announced behind that movie, the idea behind it is that it's when they're stealing the Death Star plans, right? Before Episode 4 kind of a thing is the whole idea.
Correct. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I had no idea that the whole timeline was open for making movies. I knew they were doing these spin-offs, but I didn't know they were going to be jumping around in the timeline like that. And that is such a great idea for a movie. So I'm excited.
Yeah. A Star Wars movie with no Jedis, essentially.
Right? Yeah.
That's the time before any of them pop back up, so.
That's cool.
We've never seen anything like that.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so. How about Daniel Lynch, anything you've been out and about? Did you hit Free Comic Book Day or anything?
No, I didn't even do that. I had to work. So, yeah, no, I'm as boring as can be on this particular topic. Work has been wonderful, so that's good. I get out of the house, I go there, they give me money.
That's right.
So that's good.
Keeps you out of the pool hall.
Yeah, that's right.
Danny, the rest of you guys hit your local Free Comic Book Days?
I did not.
I did not either. Yeah, unfortunately.
All right.
We're a bad comic book people.
When's Free Toy Day? That's what
yeah. Why isn't that a thing?
Well, in some years they have had free toys at Free
true.
Comic Book Day. They've done a couple of mini mates and they've done a couple of hero clips.
No, it was Diamond and their Stargate figures at Free Comic Book Day. That was
there was that. Yeah.
Like T-shirt versions of the characters. Those were tough to get at the time, even though they were free, right?
Yep. Yeah, I remember going and try and get the hero clicks and I did get the mini mates. I remember that just said like Free Comic Book Day on it.
Right.
Those were the best.
Yeah.
The little blank guys that just had like the little T-shirts on and stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Daniel,
I don't know why. I just love those.
Daniel, you've been going to that same comic shop in Manhattan Beach for a long time now, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. The Comic Bug. Those guys are great. And they actually this year did free Comic Con. So they have opened a second location. Actually, they bought a second location. There was one in Culver City. Comics Inc., the guy was retiring. And they thought it was important that there still be a comic book shop in that neighborhood. So that's the second Comic Bug location now. And they rented out the Culver City Teen Center, and they put on a free comic book convention.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. That's
like
neat.
Kotobukiya showed up.
Oh,
and,
nice.
Yeah, I mean, they had face painting, and they just do it up right. They're great. They love the community. Like Mike, one of the guys that owns that shop, he goes into the schools and the libraries and teaches how to write comics, and it just really involves the community, getting them into that comic book shop. They do
That's great.
concerts in the comic book shop. They have like stand-up comedy nights there. I've actually just been invited to start going to poker nights on a couple of Saturdays. They do a lot of the gaming stuff.
Yeah.
As far as like Magic and Pokemon and.
Well, I was just going to say it's rare to hear about a comic book shop that's actually like expanding and not going under.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it has a lot. In that case, it sure has a lot to do with them kind of, sort of diversifying and spreading out and kind of including other activities under the scope of the shop.
Yeah, and really just making it a community hangout. I think that's really important. Like trying to make it an alternative to, screwing around and getting in trouble. Like come here, read some comics, talk to people, just have fun. So, yeah, they're doing it right there. I really, really like that shop. This year they, however, did not. Normally on Free Comic Book Day, they have the Mattel Comic-Con exclusives on display, but Mattel did not reveal them in time. So this is the first time in a couple of years that I have not got to see them.
Oh, they are kind of late this time, aren't they? I didn't even really put that together.
Yeah. So normally they've announced them by Free Comic Book Day, but this year they did not.
And so the owners of Comic Bug have a relationship with the folks at Mattel.
Well, it was Scott Knightlick, Toy Guru. That was where he bought his comics.
Oh, okay.
So when he was at Mattel, he would, just bring them over there because it was the comic book shop closest to Mattel.
Right.
So, but I guess the new folks didn't are not doing that. So,
Well, there were so many reveals that they just couldn't get them all over there.
So many reveals.
Well, I think there's more coming, didn't they say? It's not just those two.
It did say there was more coming.
It did say. I'm just being mean.
Yeah. I don't know what they'll be, but we'll see.
I keep getting messages going, Pixel Dad, tell me there's going to be more. I'm like, I know as much as you guys. Yeah.
It's it's a little different this year, but
it's okay. It's money saved, less time in line.
Yeah, every time there's not exclusives that I want to buy, I consider that a win.
That's right.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I've got like the one. NECA announced that clear Predator that looks like.
I know.
Knowles Kenner one. It's like, well, I'm going to be in line for that. I know that.
Mezco just announced that like clear Sub-Zero, which I kind of want, the Mortal Kombat.
Oh yeah, that looks great too.
And yeah, so they're already starting to pop up, and I'm like, oh no, here goes the money.
Yep. It's deadly. It's deadly. That's how they get us.
Every time.
Yep. Well, one of the things I know we want to talk about this month was 2015 movies. Like, what have we seen so far? What is coming out that we're looking forward to? And anyone want to start off? I'm sure, have we all seen Avengers by now? Avengers 2?
I have.
Yes.
Yep. We definitely
all right,
have.
so
we can get the
no
Ultron
spoilers.
out of the room.
And did we all enjoy it?
Yes.
Yes.
Very much. Yeah. I am just, I don't know, everything Marvel is doing, I'm such a geek for right now. So, like, they would have had to do something pretty terrible for me not to love the movie. But, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by how awesome it actually was. Like, I loved it so much. I thought it was so much fun. Fun, and key word, man. Fun. The Marvel movies are so fun. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing I was surprised by going into it, and maybe I could have caught it. I didn't pay a lot of attention to the pre-mark. I know I'm going, and I try not to see too much. But I was really surprised by Ultron himself, just because I was kind of in this mindset of just thinking this robotic voice or this more just computer villain, and then they just completely didn't play it that way, and it was awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he was so much more fun.
Right. I didn't expect him to be as snarky as he ended up being, but I loved that.
Totally.
And then it made sense, too. It totally clicked because some friends of mine and I were talking about it, too. Like, they even mention in the movie somewhere that Ultron is Tony Stark's baby, basically. Yeah. So his mannerisms are very Tony Starkish. That's why he was very snarky like that. He was totally, because there was even that scene where, like, he said that line and Tony was like, I was just about to say that, or like he was a few seconds ahead of him or whatever. So
he did that. And then there was another one where he repeated it, something that Tony always says to a certain person.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, the claw.
And he didn't handle it very well when he was told that.
Yeah,
yeah. And it made
really
sense.
Cool.
Because I know that some people were upset that because I saw a lot of that too, not a lot, but a little, where it's like, that's not how Ultron is and blah, blah, blah. But it was that point that Ultron in the comics is made by Hank, and this is Tony's Ultron. So, and it made perfect sense then. I'm like, well, there you go. That's why. Like, yeah. Although I do think it would be funny to see Michael Douglas's Ultron, I guess, now.
That would be interesting. Yeah, but for me, it was just like, you never thought they would go deep enough to ever get to Ultron in a movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Like growing up, like, well, that's never going to happen. And it was sort of because the technology didn't exist.
That's true, yeah.
Back then to do something like that. If it did, it would look preposterous. It'd look like, number 5 from Short Circuit or something. So, getting into those really deep Marvel cut, and again, it's the same thing for Vision. Like, having Vision in a movie, are you kidding?
Yeah, folks, Vision was amazing. Same with like Daniel Lynch, like he was saying. I tried not to completely inundate myself with spoiler type info. I wanted to go in as as fresh as possible. And I sort of just kept assuming that Vision was just going to maybe show up at the very end, and it was just going to be a very short, segment or something. And I was pleasantly surprised at his role in the movie and just how amazing Vision was.
Yeah.
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 He was my favorite part.
Same thing. I mean, there was a lot of cameos that I sort of wasn't expecting. I didn't even know that War Machine was going to have much of a role in the movie. I didn't know Falcon was going to be in the movie. And none of these were gratuitous. They didn't feel like they were just kind of shoved in there just to get more characters in there. Even Peggy Carter, that was cool that
was a good
they made
moment.
it work for her to be in the movie too.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves out of 2015, but they've just announced, like, who all's going to be in
Civil War.
Civil War.
Yeah.
It's just like,
which is basically
can that be right now, please?
Yeah, that just sounds like Avengers 3, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's going to be so good.
Yeah.
The thing that I love so much about what Marvel's doing is, for years when I would see, like the Sony Spider-Man movies back in the day when they were the hot thing, I always loved them, but I used to always say, like, why can't the movies start with him just like randomly fighting somebody like Shocker? Why do we have to have like an origin story and a death of every villain that he gets? Why can't all these other little things be happening in the city? Just little throws of the comic, and they never did stuff like that. And Marvel now is doing all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Like, how amazing is it that we got this scene where they went to the Wakanda, and Claw was there, and, he stole the vibranium, and all this cool nods to with Black Panther, which is we already know is coming up at some point. And just the little things like that to make us, like, really geek out is just what adds an extra level of excitement to these movies to me.
It completely blows my mind that all of this is tying together. Like, just a cynical side of me would have thought it could just never happen, that all of these movies would be cross-referencing one another on top of the TV shows that are happening. I mean, who knows if Agent Coulson will ever show up in a movie again. It seems like maybe not, based on, just...
Well, they all still think he's dead, too.
They all still think he's dead, and even in the show, that like, he has to maintain that. Like, when there was the cameo with Lady Sif, he made sure to tell her, Thor can't know about this, stuff like that. So they're kind of working it in like that. But, like, the episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. the week before Ultron came out, and then the one after it came out, like, just perfectly bookend the movie. It's just unbelievable that it's all kind of coming together like this.
It is, and they're doing it well enough to where you don't have to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's more people saw Avengers than actually watch Agents of S.H.I.E.D., no doubt about it. So, but they're not missing anything. But for all those people who do watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you get that extra little bit of story and excitement, Because with that episode before the movie ended, where you found out that Coulson's little hidden agenda the whole time has been this whole build-up to finding the Loki staff and calling in the Avengers, and then that happens, and then the movie starts exactly where that episode ends. It's like, what? This is amazing. It was so cool to see.
Yeah.
Well, and did you guys, we're stepping away from movies slightly, but did you guys get to watch Daredevil, which is essentially a 13-hour movie?
Yeah, I'm watching it now, and I love it so much.
But it's a major plot point that part of the reason why Hell's Kitchen is in trouble is because of what happened in Avengers 1.
Right? Yeah. They keep referencing the New York incident, and but then there's also lots of, like, they talk about Captain America and stuff. Like, they throw the names out there all the time, so it's crazy. I love it.
And I was thinking about it the other day, like, how much I really, really hope that Daredevil shows up in Civil War somehow, some way, and I'm gonna, I'm assuming he will. But then it dawned on me, like, almost as much as I want to see Daredevil in one of the movie roles, I want to see Kingpin.
Well, and with them,
Daredevil is just, that what's his name, D'Onofrio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh my God, just an amazing character.
So good.
Yeah.
Well,
but in the comic Civil War, wasn't Matt Murdock one of the lawyers on one of the sides?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be cool.
Just saying.
Well, and I keep thinking about, too, like, Kingpin is also a Spider-Man villain.
Right.
And they've got, the Spider-Man agreement now. And, oh, gosh. When there was that big plot point, too, in the comics, too, after, Spider-Man unmasked himself and then Kingpin had Aunt May killed or whatever, right? And that was all a big thing. So, I don't know, just thinking about the potential things that could be happening is always really exciting.
How much do we know about the agreement with Sony for Spider-Man?
They let on a little bit.
Well,
but we know that Kevin Feige gets to be involved in some of the decision making in the Sony world going forward. So that I feel like is a good sign.
It is a good sign. And they did say that the Spider-Man movie that they're doing is going to still take place within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it is
that's cool.
It's going to maintain being connected. And in an interview that Feige just did recently, he said that once Spider-Man gets introduced in Civil War or whatever, he's going to be already Spider-Man. They said Spider-Man is already in existence in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We just haven't met him yet. Okay. So that's cool. He's swinging around in New York right now. We just haven't seen him yet. I like that. That's cool to know that he exists.
Yeah. Yeah, we've gotten his origin a couple of times already.
We don't need it.
We don't need it.
No.
Just everyone knows who he is. Yeah, so... Yeah, Avengers, great seeing, can we spoil it already?
Well, I think we're pretty far along.
Put a big spoiler warning in the description to this episode.
Yeah.
Seeing Thanos at the end, pop up.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're setting up for some big stuff.
Yeah. Kind of this like, well, I better do this myself type scene.
Yeah. Yep. Because he just keeps trying to get all the Infinity Stones. We've seen all these stones popping up in all these different movies, and
so like 2 stones kind of left, right? And if I'm not mistaken, maybe the next one in Guardians 2, and then maybe another one in Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange would be a good place to find one,
unless they show up in Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Think there'd be one in Ant-Man? There could be.
I don't know. Depends on how much they want to tie that stuff in.
Yeah. Well, and they already confirmed Ant-Man's going to be in Civil War, right?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. This is great. I love Marvel. Oh, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know.
So you saw the new Ant-Man trailer, I assume, that came out right around that time.
Yeah.
That looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And who knew Thomas the Tank would steal the show?
Man, how great is that scene? Yeah, and Yellow Jacket looks awesome. Like, one of the other things I really like about Marvel, too, is they seem to do a really good job of making all of their movies kind of feel a little different from each other. Like they all are still in the same universe, but all these characters almost have their own genre for movies, Like Guardians is totally a sci-fi flick, and Civil War or Winter Soldier was totally like this espionage kind of flick, and and Daredevil on TV is very much like the dark, gritty, mature-rated version of the Marvel Universe. So they found this great balance to make everything still exist in the same world, but every character has their own genre. And Ant-Man feels like something different, but still feels like Marvel when you're looking at the trailers for it. So,
and that's got to be hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, just like, there's people in this world going, not another superhero movie, but they haven't just been making superhero movies.
No.
Right.
And I think Winter Soldier especially kind of put a fine point on that, because it is those sort of espionage political thrillers of the 70s. So much so you put Robert Redford in it. If it's not too on the nosy, look who's here.
Yeah.
But it's very, very smart, but that's got to be hard to do.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, I agree that it's hard, but I think it also gives them, more flexibility. Because if, like, going back to how we're saying Civil War is kind of Avengers 3, it is because of that cast. But if you think about what Civil War is going to really kind of have to entail in terms of like plot and what it's kind of have the material it's going to have to cover, it does fit more into that Captain America movie mold than it would for an Avengers mold. It wouldn't really necessarily make a good Avengers movie, but it would fit with Cap too.
Yeah, because Avengers is very much your big action-packed, summer movie. That's totally what Avengers is.
And
big
if
action.
Avengers 3 weighed it down, like, oh, okay. But I think as Cap, it's going to be great.
Because we know what is technically Avengers 3 is so big it has to be in 2 films.
Oh my gosh, man. That's going to be mayhem. I can't even imagine, because they're going to throw in everybody by the end of those movies. Like, we're going to see everybody, and it's going to be nuts. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, even just, watching Daredevil, you get to the end of that thing, and it's like...
Oh, I haven't gotten to the end yet.
Well, but I'm not going to spoil anything, but
okay.
How they announced the Netflix thing was going to work is they do Daredevil, then they do Jessica Jones, then they do Luke Cage, and then Iron Fist, and then we'd move on to Defenders.
Right.
And you hear that, and you go, that's awesome, but you get to the end of Daredevil, and you go, hold on, I want more Daredevil.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, when's that coming? And they, thank goodness, announced that they are going to start work on
Daredevil season 2, but
Right.
with that initial announcement, it's like we're not going to see Daredevil, for another 3 years in Defenders if their original. If their original, press releases to be believed.
Well, and I remember when that initial press release, when they announced all that, also said that it's very possible we'll be seeing the Defenders in the films, too, once this is all established. So we probably will be seeing these guys crossing over, especially by the time of the Infinity Wars. We'll probably be seeing those guys in the films, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And they announced the second season of Agent Carter. I got to throw that out there, too, because I'm so excited about that.
Yeah.
Agent Carter was so good.
And just the way they keep building in other Marvel characters that you don't even expect to fill in, these worlds, like having the Night Nurse and Daredevil. It's like, what are you talking about? Who is thinking of this? Who's sitting in a room going, who that should be? That's just amazing.
Yeah.
That someone cares enough about this stuff as we do, and that actually made it to be in charge, so that we're all getting what we have basically been told was impossible.
Right.
It's a good time to be a geek.
Heck yeah.
Meanwhile, in the DC world, they're like, let's make everybody Batman.
Yeah. I mean, for the DC world right now, I'm really excited about the TV universe.
Yeah, I keep hearing how good Green Arrow and Flash is, and I haven't started those yet. But
I haven't either.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Teen Titans Go.
Teen Titans Go.
Yeah.
Which is also amazing.
You know what else was amazing? Young Justice, and they canceled that. Oh.
Yeah. Curses. But the fact that you can turn on your TV and half of Superpowers Wave 2 is interacting. Like, for me,
that's fair.
It just doesn't get any better than that. I'm watching Firestorm and the Atom and Arrow and Flash, and they're all hanging out, and other people are coming in, like they're fighting Gorilla Grodd and Captain Cold, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And now the Supergirl has been picked up, which is by the same team as Arrow and Flash, just on a different network. We know that there's that Legends of the... What is it called? Legends of the... I don't even know the name of it
Tomorrow?
now. Legends of Tomorrow, yeah. Which is the third CW spinoff that is going to have Hawk Girl and, all sorts of people on it.
That's cool. See, I've always felt like DC has done pretty well with their animation and the TV shows, for sure. Like, that's definitely where DC has always shined.
Agree.
I just wish they'd get their movie universe a little more straightened out.
and connect them. I'm kind of the thing, too, that there's two Flashes, and it's kind of like they're just signaling that we're not either interested or capable in doing what Marvel's doing. Like... Because I haven't watched a ton of The Flash. I've only seen like an episode or two, because we don't really have CW here,
that stinks. You need to write your comic.
I know. Well, I don't like him either. So I haven't seen the episodes, but I mean, what I have seen, he is fun and good, and he's what you would want a Flash to be. But then, like Dan said, there's already going to be this Flash in this movie that's probably, like he said, it's probably going to act like Batman. So I'm like, I'm like, just take this Flash. It works. Just use it. Figure it out.
They're all dark and gritty and brooding in the DC movies.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, DC has always been so funny, and I feel like they're getting a little better about it. But back in the day, you remember when they were talking about spinning off Aquaman out of Smallville.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They issued the edict that, well, Aquaman can't be in Batman animated, Superman animated, or Justice League, because that will just confuse people. So we're pulling Aquaman out of that show.
Right. And then Marvel's
because
like,
somehow,
look.
I know, right? Marvel's like, oh, really? We'll confuse people? We beg to differ.
Yeah. And it seemed like DC had finally kind of gotten over that, but now they've pulled Deadshot out of the Arrow universe because they don't want to confuse Will Smith fans.
I think Will Smith just needs to man up and do the show. We'll have to recast him, I know, but just go do Deadshot on the show and make it work.
I agree. So, Well, what other 2015 movies have you guys seen this year, or what are you looking forward to?
I have not seen anything else because I don't go to the theater yet because I'm not comfortable with babysitters. So
sure.
But I do know that, I mean, coming up, I mean, there's a lot of the nerd movies. I mean, of course, Star Wars, of course, is this year, I think, right at the very end.
It's December.
That'll be in December, yeah.
There's a new Terminator. There's a new Bond. Like, I'm looking forward to both of those.
Yep.
And then Jurassic World, there you go. And I was Jim and the Holograms, actually. That's my other nerdy one.
I'm curious about
I'm
that.
I'm excited about that.
I read a little clip of from something somewhere today about Gem and the Holograms that basically had a headline like, I forget what it said, but brace yourselves because this is not what you're expecting. And whatever the exact, I didn't watch that as a kid. I don't know too much about it, but whatever kind of the makeup of the storyline was of the cartoon when we were kids, the movie has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, there's no synergy in the movie, and there's no misfits, I think.
Well, no misfits is
so
bad.
Are we saying she's not truly outrageous?
Remains to be seen.
I'm still interested. I'm okay with that, just because as much as like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Jim, all those cartoons, I didn't care when they all just came on and I watched them all, so don't worry about it. But that the premise for Jim, because they tried to do this in the comic, and it was a decent first comic, but it's very 80s. Like, it's very stuck in the 80s in its own way. So I don't necessarily need them to recopy it, because it doesn't necessarily maybe work 30 years later.
Okay.
But
they totally just should have set the movie in the 80s. It could have been a period.
That's actually what I was going to say. If they really wanted to keep it true, they really would have had to have just gone back. And I'm okay with that, because, I mean, that's something like with X-Men that works fantastically.
Yeah.
To go back and do that. And I wish they would do that for Fantastic Four. They're just fantastic. And even it looks like Ant-Man kind of crosses that. I mean, we may not see anything set back 20 years ago or not, I don't know, but it has that same thing where it's you can kind of tell that, like, Ant-Man's tech looks a little older compared to Yellow Jacket. But yeah, so going back and setting things back in their time period, but not for laughs necessarily. Just setting it in the 60s or the 80s and just being serious about it being in the 80s, and just that would have been awesome for this too.
Sure.
So, but since it's a little different, I'm still open-minded to it. We'll see what it does, and DC movies have all of my derision and hate right now, so I don't have anything left for Jim and the Holograms.
I really want Batman versus Superman to be good, but I am so
I would love for it to be good. But
yeah, I know. It's like DC movies are such an easy target right now. You know what I mean? Like
they are.
It's too easy to make fun of them right now.
Anytime someone complains, I'm always like, well, what do you expect in the universe where Superman is Batman and Batman is Ben Affleck? Like, that's that universe. so it's okay.
I'm not even opposed to Affleck as Batman.
No, and I'm not really either.
Yeah.
He's an easy target also.
He is an easy target for sure. I mean, and I like the look of a lot of stuff. I think the outfit, I feel like that's the best Batsuit we've ever seen on the screen. I love the way it looks. Yeah. And just seeing some of the neat scenes in the trailer, like wearing the big armor from Dark Knight Returns, was kind of cool. I'm a little worried about them doing too much of a Dark Knight Returns storyline, considering this is our first time seeing Batman, and that story is supposed to be like one of the last Batman stories. You know, so that has me really concerned, because I don't know how I feel about that. So I don't know. I'm really hoping I'm going to like the movie, but I wasn't a big fan of Man of Steel, so I'm not real sure how this is going to turn out for me personally.
Yeah, I'm going to lose points on my nerd card here, but see, I don't really even like Dark Knight, so to me, seeing it in the film just does nothing. I'm just like, oh. I appreciate how well it's respected and liked, and I don't think that I see something that other people don't see. I mean, it's cool that everybody's happy with it, but it's just not something I've ever cared about. So yeah, I get nothing out of that. I'm just like, well, okay.
Well, the next two big sort of nerdy things that are coming out, I think, are Mad Max.
Oh, yeah.
Matter Max. What's it called? Mad Max Fury Road?
Matter Max.
I can't remember.
Maddest Max.
The Maddest Max.
And then Tomorrowland.
Right.
Yeah. I'm excited about Tomorrowland.
I don't know what to think about it. Like, I mean, it looks like it could be good, but I don't really know. Like, I don't know. It's just this thing. It's kind of... I don't know. Is it like based on is it anything to do with like Tomorrowland at Disney? Like, is it in that vein, or is it just taking that name? Or
I think it's kind of more about like stuff like Walt Disney's vision for the future, plus other like visionaries. You know, it's kind of like this whole vision of the future kind of thing. And I don't know, like I'm excited about the movie because I'm kind of a big fan of that sort of stuff with Walt Disney.
I thought you were going to say because you really like George Clooney.
I love George Clooney.
I love George.
I will see
best Batman ever.
I will see anything with Clooney in it. So that's right. No, I like that sort of aspect of Walt Disney. I've always been like really interested in like his whole vision of the future and like, you know, Epcot and Tomorrowland and all that stuff. I really, really like that stuff. So when I heard they were making this movie, I was like, that's pretty cool. I want to see that. But yeah, the trailers are a little, it's hard to gauge exactly what's going on in this movie.
Right.
Yeah, it's got one big plus for me and one big minus for me. The plus being Brad Bird. I love his films. Yeah. The minus being Damon Lindelof, who is a great concept guy, but rarely a delivery guy. So I'm unsure, but I'm still excited by it.
Yeah, I'm going to see it for sure.
Yeah.
The trailer, like I like all the visuals in the trailer, and I'm probably overthinking it, but the nitpicky thing for me in the trailer was that you have George living in this house that's obviously got state-of-the-art stuff hidden inside of it, even though it looks old. And this person shows up on his door, and she's obviously, you know, going to cause him trouble or problems. And he's just like, okay, fine, let's, you know, he puts up a little bit of resistance, and then other people show up, and then he's like, okay, we're together now, and I have to go do this. Like, there's no just. Sometimes I just want like the guys show up, and then George is like, okay, yeah, here's the girl. She just showed up here 5 minutes before you. I don't really care. Go ahead and take her.
You can take her. I don't know her.
But that would be more realistic.
Yes.
He's like, no, okay, come with me. I'm going to blow up my house. We got to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit I've seen, and again, because I've seen the Funko toys, so I don't know how spoilerific those are.
Those were actually the first thing, I think, because I don't pay attention to news as much as I should. Those were actually the very first time I heard of it, was the little jetpack, the young figure with the jetpack. Whatever that even is, but that was the very first thing I'd ever heard. So that may be something too that I maybe didn't come across it like in the cool trailer or the cool press release. I'm just like, what's this figure thing?
Yeah. Right. I don't know. I'm not going to spoil it. I know there's a guy with half a face.
Whoa.
Oh man.
Yeah. Harvey Two-Face?
No, like his head
like
is
Mel
missing.
Gibson?
Oh, his head is missing.
Oh. Like part of it's gone. Like it's just not there.
Like Gus Lopez? No, not what am I saying? Gus Fring. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Just edit that out.
Who hates Gus Lopez?
I said Gus, and that's the first last name that came to mind. Sorry.
You're like, oh, I got a shout out on a podcast. Hey, wait a second.
Face.
Missing half my face.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that, but not as horrific. Yeah, so there's that, and yeah, should be interesting. I know Disney's of course gearing up for it's like the 60th anniversary of Disneyland, so I'm sure that's going to tie in somewhat.
Neat.
Yeah.
Neat.
And so how about the Terminator? You guys mentioned that earlier. Are you excited about Terminator?
Never been a big Terminator fan.
Okay.
I am. The bad thing though is that again, this is me being a contrarian. The thing came out, and I guess the from the trailers, I guess she has an older T1 that's like her has raised her, or T800, and that was just kind of like, oh, that was terrible, and I'm like, I thought that was hilarious and amazing. And so to me, I'm like, I've noticed that in this one, there's a lot of times anyone's complaining about it or not liking something that I think that is fantastic. So yeah. I don't know if I'm exactly the right person, maybe, or I'm the right person to see the movie, but maybe not the right person to ask about the movie because I don't think I have the barometer of the public on that one.
Okay.
But it just seems, I guess, I mean, I don't know. Terminator's always kind of one of those things. The Vault on the website is one of his favorite things, and that's kind of where I know some of the doom and gloom from. But it seems like they reset the timeline often, so I don't really know that a new movie resetting the timeline maybe against that big of a deal to me.
I mean, it's just time traveled whole.
Yeah, I mean, it constantly just kind of messes it up.
Yeah,
this is just the newest way to mess it up, and it seems interesting to me. I like the idea, the part where like in the trailer, I think when it's I guess when the older T-800's there, old Arnold, and the original Arnold, I presume, I guess that's what it is, shows up, and he's like, I've been waiting for you, and I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like he goes back before that original one showed up in the first movie, and he stops it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks cool. I think it looks cool, too. I'm with you. I think the concept behind it sounds neat. I kind of liked their explanation for why Arnold's older looking, because they said that, like, you know, the flesh and everything that they put over the Terminators, the T-800s, ages just like normal human skin does, and that's why he looks the way he does. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. That makes perfect sense.
We just hadn't seen one last that long before.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I'm okay. I'm on board with it. So I think it'll be a fun flick.
So there's a new Poltergeist coming too.
Oh yeah,
I'm not watching that.
Yeah,
you're not going to watch that. You're out.
It looks frightening for sure.
My parents decided, and I love my parents, and I don't begrudge them this, but I probably watched that when I was like 4 or 5, and it had a very lasting impact on my psyche. So I'm good.
Yeah.
Like to this day, I still, I guess I had clowns in my bedroom when I was that age. Because I think I was 2 when it came out, so I obviously watched it after the fact on VHS somewhere, because I wouldn't remember when I was 2. But all of the clowns had to be removed from my room after the movie. And that clown under the bed to this day is still like blood curdling. Like, that is so awful. So I'm not, and the clown is already in the new trailer. So I'm done. I'm good. I don't need to watch it.
Yeah, the clown is like their marketing campaign now. Like, the giant clown takes up the whole side of a building here in LA.
See, I'm glad I don't live there.
Good grief.
Yeah. It's just like that clown face, all black, and the word poltergeist, and it says, like, what are you scared of?
And I would say that clown right there.
Yeah, I'm scared of you.
You.
Come into the light, Daniel Lynch. Yeah, I have some pretty vivid memories of the original when I was a kid, too. I don't really remember how old I was watching it, but, man, some of those scenes are just burned into my psyche forever. I mean, the meat on the counter with the maggots.
Oh yeah.
The earthquake at the end and the body, the coffin's opening and.
Yeah. You moved the bodies, but you moved the stones, but you didn't move the bodies. Yeah, just that freaky little psychic woman.
Oh yeah.
Her weird little Cabbage Patch face. Oh.
Yes. I like it. Cabbage Patch face.
There was a whole lot of troubling stuff in that movie.
Yeah.
Her name's Zelda or something. I think it was Zelda is her name. I don't remember her last name. I just always remember she was Zelda. It always stuck out as I remembered.
Well.
Anything else 2015 on anyone's radar?
Well, I'm looking forward to Straight Outta Compton, but we don't necessarily have to talk about it.
That's all right. You can like that.
Yeah, that was. I don't know. I was this weird kid living in rural New Jersey, listening to rap music.
Hey, why not?
And
now you're an adult living in Phoenix, listening to rap music.
Exactly right. And when Straight Outta Compton came out, I think I was a junior in high school, and I bought the album and I put it into my yellow Sony Sportsman Walkman thing, got on the bus for school, hit play, and completely lost my mind. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, got to school, made all my friends listen to it. So it was definitely a pivotal album when I was a kid, and I've liked NWA ever since, and just curious about this movie. It looks pretty good.
All right. You're not going to, carpool with Suge Knight to the thing, right? That's a bad idea.
No.
All right, well, then let's talk about toys. What do you say?
Cool.
I like toys.
We'll move on from film to something else that
toys are cool.
We seem to like and enjoy. What do we want to do first? Do we want to talk about our Dan of the month, or do we want to go with our topic?
Maybe let's leave Dan of the Month to the end.
All right, it goes to the end. Then our topic, tell us what it is, Dan Newman.
Our topic is Holy Grails White Whales. And if you are a collector, probably of any stripe, you know what I'm talking about. Although I kind of would like to open that up for discussion amongst ourselves. Like, how do you guys define the terms white whale and grail item? Like, are those terms interchangeable? If so, or if not, how do you describe them? How do you define those things? What's a white whale or a Holy Grail item for you?
I would separate the two, because the white whale's got that it's like an obsession to the point of destruction.
Right.
So for me, that's whatever the next hot toy is that I can't afford. So it changes constantly. Whereas the Grail to me is more just that one piece that it's usually probably older, something that you just didn't get or missed, and it could probably become a white whale, but I don't know if it's always necessarily one. And like for me, like I was like the white whale thing would just be like it really is whatever the next thing is that I'm just kind of like, okay, how do I fit that in the budget? And I'll sit there and I'll make a million lists in a million different ways and whatever. But for a Grail piece, I've been really blessed as a collector to be able to go back and get a lot of the things. Like they reissued Fortress Maximus like a year or two ago, and I was able to finally get that, even though I don't know what I need a 2-foot tall robot for, but he's up there and he's cool. But for me, the big Grail, and it's probably one I will never get because I don't think I can ever justify the expense, is Dick Tracy's The Blank.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I loved that movie. I still love that movie. I'm waiting for the Warren Beatty hot toy. I will buy it. I won't think twice about it. And my parents, they indulged me. We went out and we have, Sam Spade and Flat Top and just all of them, even the Bum, Steve the Bum. And, but of course we couldn't find The Blank because it didn't get released in America, which this is back in the 80s, early 90s, when you have no way of knowing this. You just endlessly are looking for it with no way to find out. And I think my parents they wrote a letter to Playmates, and Playmates responded back that it wasn't going to be released here, and that was when we knew to quit looking. My parents are really cool about stuff like that. I have the letter from Playmates somewhere around here still too.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
Which is awesome. I should get that. I don't have the Blank, but I have this letter that says why.
That's very cool. I don't really know much about that line, and this is the first I'm hearing about this particular figure. So where was the Blank released, and does it ever come up? Like, that's what I'm curious about with, like, White Whale or Holy Grail. Like, is it a matter of it just being so expensive that it's out of reach, or is it just never comes up? You'll just never see them. You know what I'm saying?
In this case, it's more, I find it more cost prohibitive. Okay. What basically happened was they had the full assortment ready, but the Blank, and I'm going to spoil the movie in case anyone has this. So if you haven't watched Dick Tracy, I'm going to spoil it. Be prepared. At the end of the Blank's identity is not known throughout the whole movie, and at the end of it, it's learned that it's Madonna's character, Breathless Mahoney.
What?
I know, it's crazy. The toy, they all had kind of a little different feature to them, whatever. And the toy for the Blank's face came off, and then there was a really bad blow up doll Madonna face underneath the mask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a Madonna.
Just Madonna. And what happened was. They didn't want to spoil the movie, so they held that one figure back.
Okay.
And then the glut of all the figures come out, and they don't sell. And then they're like, well, we have these other figures we can't send out. So it ended up it was released overseas only.
Who'll like these?
Yeah, exactly.
Foreigners.
Right, and I think it was Canada, if I remember right. And then
I think it was Canada.
And then I think some European countries got them. And I don't know if there were a ton of them that were they just aren't here. But it seems like there aren't even very many, just even in regard to that. Okay. And so it does pop up. There's usually always one on eBay, or relatively one on eBay. But I mean, it's this little 4-inch figure with like 4 or 5 POA, and it's always $500 or $600.
Okay.
At minimum.
Loose or carded?
At minimum.
Loose or carded?
Loose. That's usually the loose price. The carded prices can be even crazier.
Yeah.
And I don't look at the carded prices because I would open it anyway. In fact, I would actually, people will hate me for this. If I did end up with an open one or a carded one, I would probably delight in opening it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And just, look, I'm going to rip open this thing.
You would get death threats.
I would get death threats, I know. But it just was the circumstances that they pulled it for the thing. They pulled it for the movie, and then it just never had an opportunity to come out. And that's something that we actually hear often enough with the spoiler kind of toys. And then it just didn't get released here. And so I think for me, it's not so much that like it's this really, cool thing or this thing that, it's just kind of that it's been 25 years now, 26 years that I had them all. And like, I really wanted that one. And that's the other sad thing. It's honestly, if I were to look at that whole collection of figures, that was the one I really wanted, because the knock on that, even when I was 9 years old, was that they didn't have their trench coats. Just for, I don't remember. I think I've heard one time that they would be cloth or there was something like that, and they cut the trench coats out completely. So like you have your iconic Dick Tracy figure, and he's in his black vest and trousers, and there's no yellow except for the hat. It just doesn't ever look right. The blank, though, actually, he's never seen out of his trench coat. So in his figure, it's just molded. It's just this molded trench coat. It's what you wanted all the other figures to be. Okay. So when I was 9, I'm like, I want that one. And that was probably more important than it being the blank, although the blank face is completely awesome, too. And it just never fulfilled. And for whatever, and the sad thing is I've spent that much money on stuff I shouldn't have before, but I just never quite find that right makeup to make that say I should buy this for that much money.
I'm sorry, can you just buy like a question figure and bend its knees?
There you go. Yeah, just put him down and bend him over. So.
I don't.
I just mean how they were squatting, not bend him over.
that's Sorry, I'm mixing things there.
Dan, did you say you still have all of your Dick Tracy figures? I do have the rest of the set.
I do.
Okay.
They're not. Well, I should say that I do in theory. When I was,
you have theoretical toys?
I have theoretical toys. When I was 18, my parents moved, and they moved all of their stuff. And then the new house, there was a shed and a cellar basement. And some of the stuff went into the basement, and some of the stuff went into the shed. And mind you, this was half my life ago. This is how sad this is. Since then, we have cleaned out the cellar. I have everything from the cellar back with me here now. But in all of that time, my father and I have we really need to clean out that shed. We really need to clean out that shed. And we have never done it. So
what's the address of that
shed?
Yeah.
141. At this point, I should almost just let someone clean that. I'm like, okay, that was in there. And so there's a small list in my mind of stuff that I know I should still have, post flood stuff, but I don't have them with me. So the assumption is always that they're in the shed. And my dad, every once in a while, he'll go spelunking out into the shed. And then I think earlier or late last year, he brought me a Big Boss from Cops and Crooks, because I don't have any of my Cops and Crooks stuff here. Oh. And so I'm like, hey, and he's like, this is Big Boss. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, that's what I thought. I'm like, that why you? He's like, yeah, I just wasn't sure who it was. I'm like, you could have brought the whole box. I'm assuming they were together. He's like, I didn't care about the whole box. I wanted about him. So I have him back, but the others. So I should still have all the Dick Tracy stuff, because that was a post-flood movie. But they are in that shed somewhere that I, to this day, have still not just gone over and gotten into.
Okay, so I feel like it makes a difference that your Grail item is the one piece you need to complete a collection.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I forget exactly how many figures there were, but yeah, I mean, basically I have 97% of that toy line, and then that's just that one thing I never got.
Sweet. I think I've got all of the figures carded except for the blank. And I've got the 2 cars boxed. So I've actually got cars. A nice... Yeah, the cars are awesome in that line.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. But wasn't there some sort of drama with Steve the Tramp, too? I think
it was that he was... basically, his reason he was a villain was because he was homeless or something along those lines. And it was a big to-do at the time that they were like, oh, so this homeless guy, he's a criminal.
Yep. Yeah. This action figure of this homeless guy who's a bad guy because he's homeless.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that sort of social outrage never happens anymore.
Right.
There was no internet.
Yeah. Could you imagine if social media was back then?
Yeah. Hashtag Steve the Tramp.
Yeah.
It is actually, Dan. It was actually recalled. I didn't know that it was recalled later, but the Reverend Donald Wildman complained that the figure was insensitive toward the homeless. The package stated that he was an ignorant bum. You'll smell him before you see him.
Wow.
So yes, that's in the banned toy museum there.
He's easily found though, and he
is still he didn't get recalled very well.
No, he's just as cheap as all the figures. Like those figures are pretty easy to buy and collect still.
Oh, they really are. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all over eBay, carded, very cheap. It's just the blank. That's the only one that's hard to get online. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So, Daniel Pickett, can we transition over to you? Can you talk to us about how you think about Grail items and White Whale items, and then what you would put on your list?
So, for me, White Whale is the thing that's really difficult to get. There's a finite amount of them, and Grail pieces are just the things that you're kind of still hunting.
Right.
But it's possible to get them. So, for me, at one point I was on a payment plan to get Shockwave from the fourth Superpowers wave.
Oh, nice.
And then that piece was actually sold out from under me.
Oh.
I never got it. And it lives in someone else's collection. I think I know who has it.
Shall we rough them up for you?
No. A good person.
We'll talk offline about that.
Yeah. So that for me, and like I've always wanted ever since I've saw it in Tomarts, the Superpowers Man Bat.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a casting, and I do know someone that has one of those, and someday I will have that in my collection as well.
So those are,
but for now, I can't achieve it.
Those are like unproduced figures, right?
Those are unproduced. Yeah.
We could probably fill a whole episode talking about unproduced toys that I wish that I had. There's so many.
Yeah.
And I can't complain because I have some of those that I'm sure are on other people's lists.
Right.
Like, I have some prototypes and some pretty rare things. So, but it's in every collector's nature. There's always something else out there.
Right.
Something that, like for instance, Mr. Newman has that I've been pining for my whole life is the Mego Greatest American Hero set,
right,
which is very expensive, and it doesn't come up as often.
Right.
And it rarely shows up complete in a box. You'll either find like just both the figures or. You hardly ever see it either. You never see it loose complete, like with the cars and both figures and stuff. So that to me is something that I've always pined for. And then another one that's kind of weird is it was the Mego Mangler, which is something you guys may recall. Well, I don't know. You guys might be too young for this, you whippersnappers. Back in the day, there was those Toy World catalogs, which were comic book sized, that you'd flip through and it would have all like the Mego figures and like Spider-Man suction cup launchers, and all the art was drawn by the Joe Kubert school.
Right.
And there were no photographs in it. It was all just art, comic art. And there was a thing that Mego made that in theory went with the 3 3/4 inch Comic Action Heroes.
Yes.
And it was a vehicle that had like a big mouth on the front of it with a big tongue, and you would put a figure in that, and there were like some spongy rollers, and then like out of the back of it would spit out like a flat version, just printed on a piece of cardboard or something.
Right.
So you'd put the Green Goblin in there, and it would munch him up and roll him through, and then spit out a flat version. Well, my mom thought that was too violent.
Oh.
That was her limit.
That was it, huh?
Yeah. I had all sorts of other crazy, insane things, but that, she was like, I'm never ever going to buy you that. And those don't come up very often at all.
They do not at all. And even ones that are really beat up still fetch a pretty penny.
Yeah. And are usually broken.
Yeah.
Or incomplete. They don't have all the little cards.
Totally.
For the figures.
It's such a fun toy, though. I mean,
I know. I want one now. Thanks.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the bad thing about having like toy collecting Facebook groups and forums and stuff, because you all start talking about something and you can almost feel it happen. Like all of a sudden people are kind of like moving over to eBay and we're all kind of searching the same auctions at the same time, and
that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And some attainable things that I just haven't shelled out the cash for. I'm still missing probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 of the last 17 Power of the Force figures from 86. Because for some reason I decided, well, I've got enough Star Wars. I'm going to start collecting Transformers now, and just missed out on most of the figures that I was waiting years for them to make, sort of inexplicably.
Those are hard because they're available. It's not like there's any like if you had the cash, you could just go to eBay right now and get a decent one. But because there's quite a few of them, and each one is going to set you back between $100 and $200. It's hard to commit to. Okay, I'm going to start getting those now. Yeah.
Well, like the R2-D2 with the pop-up lightsaber. It's like that's the same R2-D2 that I have two of already, with a different head and then the lightsaber. It's just like stuff like that. It's just like just gets you. Yeah. And then there's some things that I had in childhood that I've wanted to replace that that I sold off or broke or something that I've just never gone back and gotten. And the Dungeons and Dragons Fortress of Fangs is one of those. I love that thing.
Great looking play set.
Yep.
And it was one of those things like I had that play set and a bunch of the figures, and then my mom was like, "You've got too many toys in your room. Why don't we send those to Grandma's house so you can play with stuff when you're there?" And who knows what happened to it at that point. There was a company that made vehicles for Mego figures. It wasn't Mego themselves, and they made like these VW bugs. Or not VW bugs, but VW vans for Batman and the Joker.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was the Joker Mobile and the Mobile Crime Lab. I had both those and loved those as a kid, but again, played with them till they broke down into their periodic elements. And then something that my brother had that he lost interest in toys pretty early, but he had some of the like Super Joe, G.I. Joe stuff. He had Terron. Which was this big six-legged sort of triceratops-looking thing that if you would shine a light at him, he would stop walking.
Whoa.
Which is not that exciting of a...
you caught.
Yeah, this is kind of it. But it was a big, scary, armored dinosaur triceratops sort of thing, and I loved that thing, and that would terrorize my Star Wars figures. And, every so often you see one, but I haven't, bit the bullet and replaced that in my collection.
I got to look that one up. For some reason, it's not ringing a bell, but I have a feeling if I saw it, I'd recognize it.
Yeah. So that's it for me. Those are my big ones.
Very cool. Just speaking to that Greatest American Hero set, I mean...
Sure, rub it
in. To be fair, I've... You
didn't even have to buy yours. You got it as a gift.
That's true. But when you narrow down your collecting focus to strictly vintage 3 3/4, it does help to kind of focus and narrow things down, and so you can kind of concentrate on these kind of prized items. But the figures were well built, but that car is incredibly fragile. And I have a feeling that part of the rarity of that item is because that car did not last a day of kids playing with it. You think about like the old Mego Dukes of Hazzard General Lee. That was like, it wasn't like an amazing toy, but like the plastic was solid and you can launch it down your steps and it's not gonna, break into a million pieces. If you did that with the Greatest American Hero bug, it would have shattered. Very thin, fragile plastic. And so it's like, unless you are willing to get one that's boxed, it's almost impossible to find one loose.
But the maddening thing, because I was a huge Greatest American Hero fan, to the point where someone, I think my mom or my aunt, made me the costume as a kid. Like I had that and would run around the neighborhood. I was in high school. No, but I didn't know it existed.
Oh.
I never even knew they made it back then. And then you hear people saying, "Oh, yeah, I saw those things on clearance at KB." Yeah. It's just like, if I would have seen that, I would still own it. But I never knew it existed as a kid.
I love this conversation because I'm like, I've got these crazy ideas. Like, please let me win the lottery between now and Christmas so I can get each of my bands their Holy Grail item.
Oh yeah!
Please do that. I would appreciate that.
So Dan Erdley, tell us about your white whales, holy grails, and how you kind of define those things.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be the odd man out who's going to say that I've never used the term white whale before. I've always just used the term grail, grail item. So to me, a grail item has always been defined by just a piece that I really want to own for various reasons, whether it be completing a collection or just something that I used to have that is now very unobtainable.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with my weird oddball one, because this is just really, really out there, but it's one of those things that I look for every time I go to a toy show just to see if I stumble across it. Do you guys remember this line called Pocket Power that was by Sega?
Yes.
There were these weird little play sets that essentially would fold up so you can fit them in your pocket, and they had all these different things. Like there was the one that everybody remembers was called Glow Bones, where it was this little skeleton action figure that glowed in the dark.
Huh. And me right now.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, I don't have any of those. But they
have him.
You just have him?
Yeah.
So they had a bunch of weird little things. Like there was like little airplanes and all kinds of crazy little things, but they folded up into these little rectangular containers so that you could carry them in your pocket and take toys on the go. That was like the gimmick of the line.
Okay.
So I had this one when I was a kid that opened up into a miniature bowling alley.
Oh.
And it had this little tiny like ball-bearing marble, which was the ball, and there was a little ramp that you could plug onto it, and you can turn it to face the pins, and then the pins just kind of like were these flat little pieces of plastic that would fold up, so you can knock them down and they just lay down, and then you would just flip them to fold them back up.
Now that you describe that, I've got a picture of it.
You got a picture of it? Yeah.
Yep.
So I had that as a kid, and for whatever reason, it was one of those things that I just adored. Like, I carried it with me all the time. I loved getting that thing out and playing with it, and it's one of those things that I just have no idea what happened to it over the years. It probably got sold off in a yard sale or something with most of my childhood toys. And it's one of those things that for years I had this vague memory of it and couldn't remember what it was. And it was only within recent years that I learned it was from that Pocket Power line. And then I also learned that it was from the second series of Pocket Power, which was incredibly rare in the U.S. Yeah. So that thing never shows up online. And when that particular set does show up online, it goes for hundreds of dollars.
Oh, my goodness.
Right?
Actually looks like that was Series 3.
Series 3. Okay. So it was like a really rare series. I guess it had a very short run in the U.S.
Yeah, there were only 3 or 4 things in Series 3.
Yeah.
4 sets, and the bowling was one of them.
So the bowling one hardly ever shows up online, and when it does, it's way too expensive for me to purchase, and apparently I'm not the only person in the world that's looking for it, because it also gets tons of bids every time it shows up online. So it's one of those things that I always really hope I'm going to randomly come across at a toy show or a flea market or something, because it's just so random, but it's got such a nostalgic connection for me that I really hope that I can get that thing one day, just to put it back in my collection.
Well, we will all certainly be keeping our eyes out at stores. But it does seem like the kind of thing that you might stumble on.
Yeah,
It seems like not everybody would kind of realize the value of that.
Exactly, until I just told the whole world just now.
Yeah, we've raised the price of the blend.
I just raised
Well, check eBay tomorrow. There might be a whole bunch of new listings.
That just says, the title of the listing is, "Hey, Pixel Dan, here's that bowling set.
Yeah.
Buy it now, $400. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Some of the other things are going to be more centered along my big collections, and obviously I'm a huge Masters of the Universe fan. And
That's the first time hearing of it.
Are you sure? First time? So there are several things I would consider Grail pieces for Masters of the Universe, and I've been lucky that I've actually picked up a few of them not all that long ago. 2 of my biggest Grail pieces that I never thought I would own, I own right now, which is the vintage Titus and Megator, the Giants.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
I own them both. They are both complete. They are amazing. They were expensive, but nice. I got a good deal on them and was kind of able to do the payment plan thing like Daniel was talking about, but it actually came through for me. And I was able to, I was one of those things where I was put in a place where I was like, you know what? When am I going to get another opportunity like this? I'm going to do this. So I splurged a little bit, and I got those pieces, and I just adore them because I never thought I would own them. Because very similar to the Blank and Dick Tracy, those were only released overseas, like in Italy.
Okay,
right.
They never got a U.S. release because that was when the line was getting ready to shift to Powers of Grayskull, and then it got canned. So a lot of the stuff that was getting ready to come out just kind of got shipped over there and released over there, and it never made its release in the U.S. So it's super rare. So the other two items, which were right along with those that are to this day still my Grail pieces, and really the only pieces I need to complete the vintage figures, is Laser Power He-Man and Laser Light Skeletor. I want those two figures so bad, but they are so rare and expensive. And even when they do pop up online, finding them, like 'cause Skeletor has a cloth cape, finding Skeletor with the cape is rough, or finding him with his translucent red Havoc staff that lights up is hard.
Now I know of those toys, but could you tell me a little bit about why they're so rare?
So they were only released overseas, just like Titus and Megatord, right at the tail end of that line. And their features were that they had these little LED lights inside, or lights inside of them. So like Skeletor has this translucent red hand, and you put his translucent red Havoc staff in it, and when you raise his hand and the Havoc staff glow red. And then the He-Man's got this translucent yellow power sword, which is the same thing. When you raise his arm, the sword lights up. But what makes these two figures so different is they are the two versions of He-Man and Skeletor in the vintage line that look completely different than the other variations of the characters. He-Man has got... it almost looks like they were trying to do a Dolph Lundgren head sculpt with him because he came out around the time of that movie. So he's got the shorter hair instead of the Page Boy haircut, and he's got a more slender body. Almost looks like they were starting to transition into that New Adventures of He-Man look with him.
Yeah.
And Skeletor is the same way because he doesn't really have like the same muscular body and everything that he normally has. Instead, he's got this very teched out body with he's got all these tech parts on him and circuits and wires and everything in his sculpt. And then he's got a cloth hood and cape, which he never had on any of the other figures.
Yeah.
So they are very distinct looking figures. They're like 100% new sculpts, which was rare in that line. Those figures all use shared parts a lot. So these guys are they stand out quite a bit from everything else in the line. And of course, they were only released in places like Italy, which makes them super rare now. So I would love to have those. Those are the top of my list right now of toys that I want in my collection that I just don't know if I'm ever going to get.
I would imagine the competition is pretty fierce for those pieces because Masters of the Universe has a huge fan base, and I would imagine, we're all of an age where we're trying to, complete these collections, that have so much nostalgia for us from when we were kids, and a lot of people have the means to do it now, and so I would guess that there's a lot of competition to get items like that.
Exactly. So those definitely have to be the highlights for me. There's also a lot of really weird releases with Masters, like in Argentina, got a lot of weird, almost like knockoff Masters figures, but they were still under the Masters of the Universe banner. So some of the more common ones that would be cool to own, if I could ever get a chance, is there's the one that's one of the most famous ones is Camo Khan. He's a version of Cobra Khan that has Buzz-Off's claw hands for some reason, and he's painted with a camouflage color scheme. So he's just camo for some reason. He's a Snake Man with a camo paint scheme. And so he's just this weird Argentina release. I think it was Argentina.
Oh, very cool.
And then there's a version of Mosquitor, which is my favorite character, that was also only released in places like Argentina, where the blood in his chest was black instead of red.
Oh,
so he's super rare too. Black blood Mosquitor. If I could ever get a black blood Mosquitor, it would be amazing. He's my favorite character. He's my favorite figure from that line. So that would be pretty cool to get him too.
Yeah.
So when Mattel finally releases the Laser He-Man and Skeletor, and you do your review, and it's time for comparison time.
I'm just going to show me being sad.
But I want you to play that sound effect from Price is Right. Where it goes, Can you do that for
me?
Dan
went straight for the jugular there. That's just me.
We've all been there. We've all been.
Oh, jeez.
As we can tell.
Yeah, but we all didn't make It's Comparison Time our slogan.
That's true.
Yeah. Some people get really mad at me when I don't have a vintage figure because I set myself up for that.
Yep.
I made that my thing, so if I don't have a vintage figure, I get people going, "Why didn't you show the vintage toy?" And I'm like, "I don't have it. I'm sorry."
Set that expectation.
I know.
That's what the people demand. Well, I think we're done on this topic because Danny Newman gets everything he wants. So I can't imagine there being anything on his list.
It's not entirely true.
What? What are you still looking for?
Oh man, no, it's true. I have been lucky. I've got a couple really amazing pieces that were at one point Grail items. Top of the list of things I wanted, but thought I'd never have. And we spoke about one of them, which was the Greatest American Hero set, and probably the other one right at that level is the Magnum PI with the Ferrari made by LJN. But I would very similar to Dan Erdley and Dan Lynch's Grail items. Probably the one at the top of my list right now is a similar story in that it came at the end of a line and so didn't see a release here in the States. It was only released, like they've alluded to, in Italy and in Canada, and I'm referring to the Mego Black Hole line.
Oh, yes.
So Mego, we kind of know this story. Mego did not get the Star Wars license, and so after that chased every sci-fi movie possible in hopes of recuperating, that devastating loss. And Black Hole was one of them. And Black Hole was an amazing movie, and the figures that they made for the first wave of the Black Hole series were well constructed and well sculpted. But just not well received. For some reason, Mego decided to do all the human characters in that first series, and there was really nothing very special or exciting about those human characters, and probably what they should have done is incorporated some of the cooler robot characters in that first series, and maybe they would have done a little bit better. But they saved characters like the Star Robot and Old Bob, for a later assortment, and by that time it was too late and pretty much the plug had been pulled. So this second wave of Black Hole figures, which consisted of three characters, the two I mentioned, the Star Robot, which is the black version of the Red Sentry Robot, if you're following, Old Bob, and a character called Humanoid. And so those three figures were released in Italy and Canada, and so are super rare. And for some reason, even the rarest of those three is this character called Humanoid. And if you remember the movie, there's just kind of those creepy characters, faceless characters that were on the bridge. And that figure comes with the soft goods brown cloak and booties, brown booties. And some people will say that you could find it with the booties and without the booties, and I don't know exactly the definitive line on that. But that's a figure that doesn't come up very often, and when it does come up, a loose humanoid will fetch, pretty much in the $1,000 range. And so it's sort of one that I've kind of written off, but I still do pretty much a daily search for, just hoping for, one of those fluke things to happen. But that's definitely the top of my list. It's probably regarded as one of the rarest action figures of all time. Probably the rarest 3 3/4 inch action figure of all time. Wow. So I've got some others on the list, but I know we've been talking about this a long time. I don't know if you want to hear about it anymore, but that's number one.
Now there is a guy out there making a custom of it.
Yeah.
Would you be satisfied with that as a placeholder?
I've seen customs come up in the past that were pretty reasonably priced, and it seems like the custom that's going around now fetches like in the $200+ range, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that
because he carded it.
You see, it's right. It's carded, and it's really nice. It's very well done. And I think if I would have gotten in on that when you could have gotten a decent custom for more like the $40 or $50 range, I probably would have done that. And maybe if something like that comes up, I'll spring. But I would do it, but that it's not the real thing. And part of this collecting insanity is needing kind of the original. So I don't know if it would kind of still gnaw at me, even if I had a custom.
You'd always know it's not the real thing.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, but that.
What else you got on your list?
Well, that is one that will come up occasionally. There is another crazy Mego line that does not come up hardly at all, and that's CB McHall. And this was a line that Mego did during like the kind of truck driving craze of the late 70s, which I guess there was. And so they did this line of figures. There were 9 figures. There were 3 kind of like good guy cowboy-esque figures. There were 3 cops, and there were 3 bad guys. And they had a very similar construction to the Mego comic action heroes, which had kind of the bent legs and kind of that one weird hand that everybody fixates on and has to, joke about. So the CB McCall line had those 9 figures, and it had a good guy rig and a bad guy rig and a top car. And these are the types of figures where you could search every day, and maybe once or twice a year, something out of the line will pop up on eBay, and it's usually in rough shape, and lots of people are watching, and there's lots of bids, and they go for lots of money. So right now I have 5 of the 9 figures, and 6 of the 9 figures, thanks to a lucky auction last week. Just kind of one of those things. I'll just continually watch, and hopefully, over the years, the few figures that I'm missing will come up and be affordable.
Now, do you enjoy that just because it is a piece of 3 3/4-inch history? Because it's Mego? I mean, you clearly were not a huge fan of Convoy and the CB craze of the 70s.
Totally, yeah. That one was I think it was a little bit before my time anyway, and I don't remember them from when I was a kid. But yes, they are kind of an iconic member of the vintage 3 3/4-inch universe, and I do love Mego too. So for both of those reasons.
See, I probably would not have been able to own any of those as a child in my house.
Why is that?
Because my father was a ham radio operator, and he thought those CB guys, they're not licensed. They didn't have to take any tests. They didn't have to learn Morse code.
Oh, very interesting.
They were, So
and each of the vehicles came with a CB, an electronic CB, so you could have driven them crazy.
Yeah. So I don't think I could have owned that as a kid. He was staunchly against that. Wow, there's a lot of good rare stuff on our list.
Yeah.
So if there's any wealthy benefactors out there that just want to...
If anybody wants to send us free things, our address is P.O. Box.
Now you have our list.
There's Free Toy Day.
There we go, yeah.
I
like it.
I got a dozen of those laying around. As well. Oh, yes. Well, that's some tough stuff.
Yeah.
I think, if any of us end up finding any of these or picking them up, we should report in on that on future episodes.
Oh, absolutely.
Sounds good.
Everyone will know I have a blank if I ever have a blank.
Yeah. The whole world. Yeah.
Yes. Well, now it is time for our Dan of the Month. As you know, every month we pick a Daniel named action figure, or the actor could also be named Daniel, that we focus on. Who wants to get us started? Do we know? Should we say Daniel Lynch, since you actually owned one of these as a kid? Do you want to announce our Dan of the Month?
It was from the Rimco Karate Kid line, or of course the main character, Karate Kid himself, Daniel. And I don't think, do we pick a specific kimono, or are we just going to go, like...
We'll talk about that. There were a couple of different versions, right?
I think I had the, I don't remember all the colors. Obviously there was white and gold. And I believe I had one that was kind of a pinkish red. I think he broke ice, if I remember right. But they all had an action feature, and they could all kick or punch. I forget.
That's my favorite scene in the movie where he beat up the ice.
Yes, he punched through the ice. Yes. Well, they didn't. Wax on, wax off really isn't a good action feature. So
right.
That would get old. I've been trying since we nominated this one. I've been trying to think if I had any others, and it feels like I might have had a Miyagi. But that was so long ago. But I was really obsessed with the movie as a kid, and normally when I talk to people about it, they're like, "Oh yeah, Daniel, yeah." But here I'm talking to all Daniels, so hopefully I don't know if all of you felt that way or not. But that was a big deal at the time. We did a Halloween costume of that. I still actually have. I think my mother hand drew the headband. Cool. And I still have that. And it's kind of actually a funny thing too. I'll still draw that. Like when I'm bored, if I'm doodling, sometimes I'll just be doodling and I'll be like, "Oh, I drew the little lotus on the headband."
Yeah.
So it kind of imprinted on me in that way. But it's kind of funny because I don't really have I've never gone back. Those are all. I got to quit talking about the flood because it happened like 25 years ago. Those are all flood toys. They're all gone. And I've never gone back to get any of them. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And I've been thinking about too. I'm like, I wonder why it really, I love that movie so much and I'll still watch it today, but not really in a toy way. I haven't gone back and gotten those. And I've been kind of keeping an eye out for the reaction ones, but I don't think I've run across those yet either. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing with Karate Kid. I mean, not really having something that I really enjoyed that I don't really have toys of. It's kind of strange. I feel weird. I got to go to eBay.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think talking about these is going to turn us all into wanting to go buy them, because this is a line that I've never owned any of the figures from, but I run into them from time to time at toy shows, and I always think that they're very cool looking. And one of the things that is so neat about these figures are the play sets that they had, because they had the competition center and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those are just awesome. Yeah, right? How cool is that? So all of that stuff just makes this look like such a fun line, and I don't really know how hard this one is to collect. I'm willing to bet it's not very cheap.
It's not. You would think it is, but I mean it's not uber expensive, but I wouldn't say it's cheap.
Well, and the fact that they've got these cloth kimonos on and stuff has got to add to the value a little bit, or the complication in collecting them, because any of those toys that had those cloth parts were easily lost as kids. So finding them with the cloth pieces still in good shape or even still there is going to make it a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
But there was one that came with no cloth at all, right?
There's the white, and the traditional white kimono is a molded.
Yep.
Yeah.
I see that. I'm looking at.
And I think the others just had the cloth over that same figure.
Well, there is a Daniel Karate Kid figure with a white kimono that's not molded. The only figure that I think doesn't have any soft goods was the referee pack-in from the competition center play set.
Oh, there was a referee guy.
Yeah.
He's got a big, cool mustache.
And did they all have, I know they all broke different stuff, but did they all have the same action feature?
Yeah, they called it tri-action, which means they could do 3 different things. They could karate chop, they could karate twist, and they could karate kick. And the kick was activated by a lever button on the back.
I'm not familiar with karate twist.
Well, just like the breaking the ice, how big of a part of the movie that was.
I think
so the karate twist.
The He-Man figures could all do the karate twist too, correct?
The power punch.
The power punch. Yeah.
Right. But they all came with a cool accessory, a breakaway accessory to mimic their them breaking something, which was totally cool. Otherwise, they were they were kind of 5 points of articulation, although the kind of karate hand arm, it was kind of just specific to that move. They're about 6 inches tall. And I don't know, Remco is kind of one of these sleeper companies that we don't think about too often, but they made some pretty cool toys.
They did. They made some neat stuff. There's always things that I'm always kind of surprised to find out that they were a Remco toy sometimes,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I realized that these Karate Kid ones were Remco. Now that we're looking back. I know I've run across them, but it's like, oh, Remco. Okay,
Yeah.
Now, how old were you guys when this movie came out?
I think this was 86, correct?
It might have been 85, I think, because I was in junior high.
Okay. So then I was 3 or 4 years old when this movie came out.
It was 1984. I was 4.
Okay.
So, but I definitely still watched it as a kid. This was definitely one of those VHS tapes that you would rent a lot and watch a lot. So I saw it plenty of times growing up.
Yeah, I was about 12, and it definitely had an impact. It's one of those movies. It's another one of these things that stayed with me. There's a lot of memorable scenes, a lot of emotional impact that kind of gets seared into a 12-year-old kid's brain.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid's name was Daniel, so like right away you're like, yeah, he's got the same name as me, and then like, hey, he's from New Jersey.
But from then on, after that movie came out, did everyone call you Daniel?
Daniel's son? Yeah.
Always.
I got that. I was going to say, yeah, to this day, I still get that every now and then.
Yeah, well, I still get it some, too.
Yeah.
The thing I remember about it, again, I would have been in junior high, or as you kids say, middle school. And what was strange, as a promotion to the film, they actually sent the trailer out via video cassette tape to the schools.
Oh, wow.
And I remember watching it in my English class, in Mrs. Sheets' class. Huh. And they would show kind of like a little, it was more than a trailer, it was kind of a coming soon, a featurette thing. And they sent out these little booklets, like workbook things that you could fill out stuff in it, when that movie came out to like build the excitement. It was just like, oh, this is interesting, we should all go see this. And we all did. Huh. And it's the only time I remember that happening growing up in school.
How do you think they got away with getting schools to play that?
I guess they thought it was educational.
Huh.
Maybe back then they would just put whatever videotape came in the mail. They just, it was simpler times.
A videotape.
Just one more day I don't have to make a lesson plan.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like I was about to say, so his name's Daniel, so check, he's from New Jersey. That another check. Him and his single mom have a old green beat up station wagon. So I'm like, yeah, I'm totally 100% behind this movie. I can totally relate. But unfortunately, I never got to move to California and learn karate. And so that's
there's still
kind
time
of where it ended.
You got most of the way there.
Still time. There's a karate place right next to my comic book shop.
I'm on my way.
Yeah, come out here. We'll get you a belt.
Yeah, but good line. It's not a line that I collected when I was a kid, and so just kind of for the sake of this, I made sure I got a Daniel figure. I got the one with the gold kimono, and that one comes with a breakaway, the accessory is like a piece of glass that he breaks in half.
Ooh. Is that what we're hearing right now?
Oh, yeah.
Shattering it.
Hey, got it.
Oh, he hates that glass.
Yeah, I'm looking them up now. the carded figures are pretty expensive online. They're going...
Like what are we talking?
Most of the carded figures that are on eBay currently are sitting at, like, buy it now... Oh, let's see, $185. Here's one for $279.99. Holy cow! That's a Mr. Miyagi. There's what is this guy?
Talk about sweeping the leg,
right? No kidding. $123 for Sato new on card. So there's just I don't know. It's pretty expensive to get these guys in the packaging still.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's tough stuff.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I kind of want to get one on the card because, I'm not sure if they all came with it, but the accessory kind of came. You don't see it; it's behind kind of like a little box.
Yeah, it's hidden. Yeah.
And on a few of them, there's like this scroll, and it says "Secrets of Miyagi Scroll. Learn his secrets. A different lesson with each package." I can't quite make it out.
Huh.
Now I'm kind of curious to.
Now we got to buy them all and find out the damn secrets.
Dang it!
That Miyagi got up his sleeve.
We have new Grail items, folks.
We just created new Grail items right here.
How about here's a crazy one in the sold listings. It was a Miyagi Daniel 2-pack. It would have been graded, sold for $1,200.
Wow!
What?
That's crazy.
That's a lot of the dollars.
It is a lot of the dollars. And then right beneath it is like the two figures loose for $18. None of the cool accessories, though.
It must be because of the accessories. I bet that's why the carded ones.
I do think it's a lot. Yeah, the accessories, because the loose ones by themselves, and like you mentioned about the kimonos have not aged well. Right. I think that's part of it too.
Right.
Wow.
Crazy.
Well, let's have people. If you're listening to this, in the comments section over on the Facebook page or on the YouTubes, whatever, tell us what your Grails are and what you're looking forward to as far as films in 2015.
Good idea.
And tell us if you have a different definition of White Whale versus Holy Grail.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the listeners.
And point if you post as Captain Ahab when you mention White.
Exactly. Well, that's a whole lot of talking for one episode, fellas. We're making up for our lost time.
Absolutely.
Now. So we'll get this one in the can and get it posted, and we'll start talking about our next episode.
Very good.
Woo.
As always, thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And, keep collecting.
That's right.
We will.
Buy toys.
Keep
Never
buying
grow
toys.
That's right.